Well, thank you very much, firstly, for the opportunity to present to you this afternoon. Hopefully you are awake after a lovely lunch. And thank you to the NCPC for inviting us to be part of this. I'd like to give you some background in terms of some work that's recently been completed for the Department of Science and Technology, which is around the development of a waste research, development and innovation roadmap for South Africa and the logic that went into that process. So as Anban has touched on, the principles of the waste hierarchy have really been embraced in South African legislation. We see it in the Waste Act, the Waste Amendment Act, the National Waste Management Strategy. But I have to say that we've been slow to transition up that waste hierarchy. We know that we still send approximately 90% of our waste in South Africa to landfill. And we also estimate that there's at least a minimum of 17 billion rand every year that we're throwing away by putting it into landfill sites in South Africa. And those resources are being lost from our economy in terms of the downstream manufacturing sector. Just to show you some diagrams, you can see some photos from landfill sites in South Africa. You can see this particular photo, clean plastic sitting in the front, which very easily could go back into a manufacturing economy in terms of new polymer, back into new processes. I always love this photo of this guy running for his life as he opened the back of the truck. But this was from an agricultural area. This was waste from a citrus farm with a very high water content, but again disposed of into the landfill site. And you look at that and you say there are a lot of nutrients in that waste stream that are being lost to the economy. It could have gone into composting, into anaerobic digestion, into biogas, a whole lot of other opportunities to recover those valuable nutrients and materials in that waste stream. Even very often when we actually recover the materials, we go through a very lengthy process of recovering the material. We then go and export it to other countries around the world for them to generate the benefit in terms of jobs or value to the economy. And it's around this, around the value that sits in our waste, that we're wanting to look at in terms of the opportunities that research, development and innovation provides. So we know that moving up the waste hierarchy, it unlocks these opportunities. It unlocks social opportunities, environmental opportunities and certainly economic opportunities. If you think about that 17 billion rand that we throw away every year. And so in this moving up the hierarchy, as I said, lies the opportunity for R&D and for innovation, particularly around informing policy development to make sure that our policy is based on sound evidence, that we understand the implications of implementing it. Absolutely in terms of informing technology uptake in the waste sector. Are we implementing the right technologies that are going to produce the maximum benefit, social, environmental and economic benefit for South Africa? And then around providing evidence to support informed decision making, very importantly. We also did a study to look at the current capability in South Africa with regards to research, development and innovation. We did a process of mapping the capability across all of the universities and science councils in South Africa. And what we found is that research, development and innovation is still very much emerging within the South African national system of innovation. We absolutely do have pockets of excellence sitting in our universities. There's evidence of both specialization in certain areas of waste management, and there's also evidence of diversity in RDI across the fields of waste. However, what we did find is that investment in R&D is sadly very small in South Africa when we benchmark it against other countries. We estimate that the investment in waste research, development and innovation sits at about 0.3% of the value of the South African waste sector, which is at around about 15 billion rand. And this sits within a national context with regards to spend on research and development, which has actually bottomed out at around about 0.76% of gross domestic product. It actually declined. I think we peaked at around about 0.95%, if I'm not mistaken. So we're sitting within a national context where people are no longer investing in R&D, or they're taking their R&D investment offshore. And so because of this background, the Department of Science and Technology initiated a process in 2012 to essentially develop a strategic approach with regards to research, development and innovations, particularly in the waste sector, to look at how RDI could unlock these opportunities that exist and to support this move away from landfilling towards alternatives. The diagram on the right there Just gives you an idea of the process that we went through. The very first study we did was around understanding the value of waste, and that was the figure of the 17 billion rand. And if anyone's interested, these reports are available on the website, which I'll give you at the end of the study. We looked at the trends analysis. What are the big trends globally that are happening around the world? We see a strong investment globally in things like organic waste, biomass, in the mainline recyclables, but also in the very large waste streams, your bulky streams like your ash, your residue stockpiles. We then went into a process of identifying the priority waste streams. We looked at the market opportunities, and we took that through to strategic prioritization and then into the actual roadmap itself. The three pillars on which the waste roadmap is built are these three. The first one is around human capital development. It's really around upskilling the South African waste sector, that we have skilled people that are making the decisions with regards to moving away from landfilling. It's very much around strengthening South Africa's research and development base, and it's around waste innovation, not only technological, but also around social innovation and business innovation. And this is all really in support of recovering the maximum value that sits in our waste stream as a secondary resource, and in support of South Africa's transition to a green economy. Very briefly to touch through these, why the roadmap? Well, really, the first one is around more effective decision making, as I mentioned. It's around faster insertion, very importantly, faster insertion of moving up that hierarchy of context-appropriate technologies. Very often we hear about technologies being imported into South Africa, plug and play, and they fail, in that people haven't looked, is this the appropriate technology for the South African environment? Also, where is there opportunity for us to actually export our know-how? There may be some unique waste streams that we sit with, and where is there opportunity for us to develop both capability and technology in that space that we could actually be exporting both into the African continent and globally? And then very importantly, as I said, the strengthened RDI capability that underlies this. We went through a very intense sector participation process with the waste sector and also with the National System of Innovation, the universities, the science councils. We prioritized these 5 waste streams. We prioritized municipal waste, organic waste, plastic waste, waste tires, and electronic waste. So the roadmap will focus for the first few years on these 5 priority waste streams. And having gone through the whole process, I've skipped out, between the last slide and this one, I've skipped out about 1.5 years of work. But this particular slide shows really the 6 clusters, the focus areas on which the roadmap will focus. The first one is around strategic planning. So it's around providing the R&D and the evidence that will support strategic planning, policy development, the macroeconomics of waste management. The second one around modeling and analytics. So do we have the kinds of tools, the capability, the expertise to be looking at things like life cycle analysis, cost-benefit analysis, those kinds of models and tools that really inform the decision we take. I presented recently the case study of the espresso capsule, if anyone drinks espresso. There's a fascinating life cycle analysis that's been done on that little capsule in terms of should one go bioplastic as opposed to aluminium capsule. So do we have the kinds of capability in South Africa to inform those decisions with regards to the products that we implement? Technology solutions, a very strong focus of this, around evaluating technologies, demonstrating technologies, and localizing technologies for South Africa. The whole issue of waste logistics, how we move waste around the country. As a very big country, we face a lot of challenges that, for example, the European Union may not face with the countries being so much smaller. And then the last 2 around waste and the environment, particularly looking around the issue of waste and climate change, and then waste and society and the social benefits that waste provides in terms of jobs. This means significant increase in the investment in the R&D spend in South Africa. The yellow line at the bottom gives you an idea of if we did nothing, if it was business as usual, that would be the growth in South Africa's R&D spend, which is pretty insignificant at the bottom of the diagram. And we're really looking to ramp this up in terms of new investment in R&D in South Africa. That gives you an idea of the particular areas, those clusters of where the investment will go, and we see the bulk of that investment into the technology solutions cluster. But very importantly, this is not just about government spend. As I said to you, we're sitting in the context of a steady state with regards to national spend in R&D. And so we have to look at how we implement this R&D together with partners in the sector. Some of these may be sitting in other government departments, but also very importantly around the private sector, identifying the opportunities that research, development and innovation provides to them in terms of things like process performance improvements, efficiencies in their processes, recovering value from the waste that they generate, or around setting up new businesses to recover those secondary resources. The anticipated benefits, just to recap, firstly around reducing the generation of waste. So there's a lot of opportunity in terms of cleaner production, and we're engaging with the NCPC on that. Increased diversion of waste away from landfill. That's at the core of all of this in moving up the hierarchy. Reducing the impacts, increasing the recovery, the whole issue, we know this term, driving towards a circular economy. But very importantly, it's around the last one, around stimulating a regional secondary resources economy in Southern Africa, which has the potential to create new jobs and new businesses. That's just a recap if anyone wants to, but essentially what it's about is to say we have a set of problems on the left-hand side. We know where we want to go to in terms of the right-hand side of the solutions that we want to achieve. We're not doing this alone. We're not trying to duplicate the work that the Department of Environmental Affairs is doing as the lead custodian on waste. It's around working in partnership with the various government departments in this space. And for the DST, it's around using the instruments and the mechanisms that they have available to them, which are those three blocks: HCD, R&D, and innovation, to achieve those objectives. The way forward, my last slide, I think. The way forward, the CSR has been appointed by the DST to drive the implementation of the roadmap as from the 1st of April of this year. Absolutely in partnership with government, with industry, with academia, both locally in South Africa as well as internationally. We'll explore opportunities for RDI collaboration, co-investment, and then the focus areas for this coming year. We'll focus on the short-term RDI objectives that were identified in the roadmap, and specifically they're around looking at technology, what mechanisms we put in place to provide support for technology evaluation, demonstration, localization. We'll be looking at driving particular R&D projects on logistics and around waste and society. What is the job creation potential in the waste sector, not only the direct but the indirect and the induced jobs in the sector. We'll also continue with a series of workshops that we started successfully last year, which is around industry meets science. It's around bringing industry together with the scientific community, industry saying these are the problems that we have, and academia showcasing the research that they're doing to make sure that we're actually directing our research into addressing real-world problems that industry faces. And then the last point is the ongoing support that we have for the two newly established specialist degrees in waste management. The first one started this year. It's an honours degree in waste management at Northwest University. Next year they'll be converting that so that it's not only a full-time degree, but they'll be converting it into a part-time degree as well. At the same time, they'll be ramping it up into a master's degree as well. And then the University of KZN, based here in Durban, is currently working on an MSc Eng, which the focus of which will be much more around technologies and technology implementation. If anyone is interested, that is the website. All of the documents that I've made reference to during the course of the presentation, they are all on that website. And then the contact details for myself or my colleagues at the Department of Science and Technology if you have any particular questions. Thank you very much.